Family said I was just a guest in my own home. So I canceled every payment, moved into my place, and let them drown in the debt I used to cover while I was in college. My sister took over my room. Dad said, "You didn't live here anymore." I answered, "Cool, then stop asking me to pay the mortgage." The stillness was deafening when I hit something unusual that summer. 3 years of college had passed in a haze of half priced energy drinks, soul crushing group projects, and evenings. I can't quite recall, but this trip home, the one following exams, was meant to be my reward. I'd been looking forward to my bed, bookshelves, and the scratchy carpet under my desk where I used to pace all night in high school. Home, or what I believed was still home. The indicators were little at first, such as no one texting to ask when my bus would arrive. "No, I can't wait to see you," from Mom. My sister, Emily, didn't send any taunting or emoji-laden messages, but I attributed it to stress. Everyone's tired these days, right? The fear didn't set in until I went through the front door, duffel bag slung over my shoulder, and discovered that my childhood images had been replaced by glossy canvas reproductions of someone else's aesthetic. I hesitated at the staircase. Emily's trademark aroma of vanilla candles and generic laundry detergent wafted through the air. She was 17, almost out of high school, but her tastes had always been influenced by HGTD's Wayward Daughter. Nevertheless, I smiled to myself. Perhaps she just redecorated downstairs? Perhaps it is my room. I came to a stop at the door. My old door, the one with the faded "Keep out unless you have a pizza" sign. It was now pristine with a light glow. There was a cursive gold decal. That said, "Emily Sanctuary." My stomach fell. I knocked once and pushed the door open. What greeted me was more than simply a renovated room. It was a room that had been deleted. My desk is gone, as are the posters I had meticulously chosen over the course of 4 years. Nowhere my bookcase remained intact, with all of the titles carefully labeled, "Garage Donate" in pink Sharpie boxes. Where my bed once stood, there was a full-length mirror. A ring light is in the corner. There were photos of Emily and her pals on the walls. Her makeup was spread on a fresh white vanity. My voice broke the silence. "Where's my belongings?" Emily barely glanced up from her phone on the bed. "Oh, Dad packed it all up. You mentioned that you no longer live here." I gave a blink. "What, we redid it last month. You have been gone for 3 years. You're practically a guest now." I turned, walked out, and found my father in the kitchen, flipping through a stack of mail as if it were any other Tuesday. "Dad," I murmured, trying to keep my voice normal. "Why is Emily in my room now?" he asked, not looking up. Since you do not reside here anymore, there was no apology or hesitancy, just a flat tone, as if it was the most obvious thing in the world. I was staring at him. He was the same man who texted me last month. "Could you contribute a little extra towards the mortgage?" "You still officially live here, correct?" "Technically." I took a long breath. My voice was soft, but it hit like a hammer. "Okay," I replied. "Stop asking me to pay my mortgage." The subsequent hush was deafening. Evan. Emily had stepped out of the hallway phone, dangling in her hand and lips slightly parted. No one said anything. It seemed as if I had violated some implicit agreement that I was meant to keep contributing and never question where it all went, but not this time. It was the beginning of something different. After that, please stop asking me to pay the mortgage. My father merely stared at me as if I had cursed at him, as if I had crossed some invisible line. I had no idea existed, but I didn't flinch. I let the silence continue. He eventually cleared his throat, said something about attitude, and exited the room. I did not follow. Instead, I went outside and sat on the back porch steps, the wood still warm from the sun. I glanced out over the yard, the same one I used to mow weekly. The shed slanted slightly to the left, as it usually did. The grass had slightly overgrown, and I noticed Mom's new flower garden. Her favorite color was lavender. That was new to me, but I didn't notice it. Not exactly. I was thinking of money. 3 years. That is how long I'd been mailing checks. Initially, it was $150 per month. Just a small gesture to help out. You still technically live here. Dad had said back then I was staying in dorms, eating ramen and teaching on the side to get by. But I figured they needed help, and I was still a part of this house, right? Then it escalated to $200, $300, and occasionally more. Random Venmo demands tagged utilities or maintenance. Every time I paused, there was an SMS. The family works together. I believed it till now, until I came into my former room and saw my life memories and possessions reduced to boxes stacked in a frigid garage labeled for charity. As if I were just another spring cleaning duty, I remembered something from last semester. Emily had posted on Instagram about her new vanity mirror with dimmable lighting. The caption was something like, "Finally got the glow up I deserve, blessed." I liked the post, commented, and even looked great. Sis, I hadn't realized I paid for that mirror. I scratched my face, suddenly feeling fatigued, in a way unrelated to finals. It wasn't just the space. It was that I was budgeting frozen burritos and doing laundry at 2 a.m. to escape the dorm crowds. My family had gradually cut the cord while still cashing the payments. That's when I checked my phone, opened my bank app, and browsed through the most recent transactions. They were all still outstanding, and I had yet to make the May payment. It had been scheduled to sit there. I hovered over the cancel button and pressed it. There's one down. Then I disabled the auto transfer link that my parents had put up 2 years before. It had been done purely for convenience. They said no more that night. I didn't join them for supper. I went out and got a burger at a small dive bar I used to frequent in high school. I sat alone in a booth that my friends and I had jammed into after football games. I wasn't part of the team. I was in the pit band, but they always kept a seat for me. Now I was saving one for myself. It's just me and mine, and it felt oddly pleasant. The ramifications did not take long. To start. The next morning I was making coffee, when Dad came into the kitchen with that particular stiffness he always had when something was bothering him. But he didn't want to say it outright. He poured himself a cup, leaned against the counter, and asked too casually, "Hey, did your transfer go through yet?" "Haven't seen it?" "Hit the account. I didn't even look up." "No, I said I canceled it." Silence, he blinked. Would I finally met his eyes. "You said I don't live here, so why would I pay to live somewhere I don't?" He set his mug down a little too hard. "Don't be dramatic, Mark." There it was. Dramatic. The word they always used when I said something they didn't like. Not angry, not rude, dramatic. "You've been helping with this house for years." He went on voice tightening. "And now you just stop over a room." I laughed once cold. "It's not about the room, then what is it?" "It's about how you all made it crystal clear that I'm not part of this house anymore. Emily threw out my things. You said, 'I don't live here.' You made that choice, and I'm making mine." He opened his mouth and closed it. Then came the guilt tactic. "We've been counting on that money, son. The mortgage doesn't pay itself." I raised an eyebrow. "I've been counting on having a family that actually respects me. We don't always get what we want." That was when Mom walked in, already dressed for work, mug of peppermint tea in hand. like she hadn't heard a thing, but her eyes flicked between us. She knew Mark. She repeated, "Let's not do this. Not while you're at home." I put down my coffee. "I'm not home." "You made sure of that." I exited the room. Later that day, Emily summoned the courage to knock on the door of the guest room, her previous room, which they offered me as a consolation prize. She leaned in the doorway, arms folded, hair curled and makeup flawless as always. "You're really blowing this out of proportion," she observed, as if I were overreacting over a broken pencil. "You moved into my room without informing me. I spoke everything, painted my walls, and said nothing." "It has been 3 years." She gave a scoff. "You've got a life. I have mine." "I was in need of space." "You had space," I remarked gently. "You simply wanted mine." That silenced her for a moment. She shrugged. "Well, sorry, but you weren't using it. I paid for it." Her expression twisted. "What's that supposed to mean?" "It means the mirror, the desk, and the paint you used. All of that came out of my monthly deposits. So enjoy it. It's the last thing you'll get from me." Her mouth was slightly widening. She hadn't expected me to bite back. I wasn't supposed to say those things. I was meant to be the reliable big brother, the one who helped. "No more." She walked away in a huff, muttering something under her breath, but I didn't ask her to repeat it because I had already packed my luggage. I departed the next morning. There was no grand goodbye. There was no elaborate farewell. I simply zipped up my suitcase and walked past the kitchen, where Dad was half sleeping in his recliner, and out the front door. Mom didn't move from her room. Emily had already left, most likely going to have smoothies with her friends. Unaware of the storm she had helped build, I grabbed an Uber to the station and caught the first train back to university. It was technically summer break, but I could still use the dorms for a few weeks. They weren't really luxurious. Thin beds, clean white walls, and the incessant buzz of vending machines down the hall were all mine. Every inch of that space felt earned. Nobody could remove it, paint over it, or repurpose it to fit the new attitude. That afternoon, I sat down at my desk, my laptop open, and a half-empty Red Bull beside me, and began sending emails. No, not to my parents. These lines have been cut. I contacted scholarship offices, internship programs, and student housing committees. I was tired of putting in extra effort for an institution that plainly considered me as expendable. From now on, I was creating something for myself. That very week, I received an email that altered everything. I applied to a marketing agency during the midterms. They offered me a summer internship, paid full-time downtown office. I had to read it 3 times before it hit home. I called the number listed in the email and responded yes before the woman could finish asking if I was still available. I signed a short-term lease for a studio apartment. 2 days later, it was barely larger than a dorm, and the bathroom had a tile that was older than I was. But it had a lock, a little balcony, and a spot on the wall where I could store my belongings. It took all I had saved to cover the deposit and the first month's rent. But for the first time, my money was going towards me. My money wasn't a mystery anymore. Venmo request tagged water bills. Not anymore. "Can you contribute this month?" Mom texted me. At 1 a.m., I entirely restricted access to the family financial accounts. I changed my passwords and disabled the auto transfers, which I should have done a long time ago. Then the messages arrived. At first they were passive, Mom, just checking in. Did something happen to the payment this month? They then became more aggressive. This is not how our family does things. "Dad, Mark, you committed." And then came the guilt. "Emily, you are actually punishing all of us because you are upset that I needed a room." I did not reply to any of them. I just shared a photo on Instagram. Nothing fancy, just my new apartment keys on the counter with a six-pack and a laptop. Caption new chapter. No hashtags and no explanation. They witnessed it. I know they saw it. The stillness that followed spoke it all. The hush lasted 3 days until Mom broke down. I received a long, desperate email in my mailbox. The subject line, "We should talk." She wrote about the tension she was feeling and how things had gotten out of control, how I had always been the reliable one. That last sentence made me giggle. Dependable like a paycheck with feelings. I didn't reply. The following day, a bank notification appeared indicating another request from Dad, this time for $100 for a plumbing problem. I declined it. Seconds later, another $200 appeared. I declined again. That evening, I shared a photo of my office badge. Only the lanyard and the firm's emblem are visible on a glossy glass wall caption. First week, that one landed hard. Nobody liked it, but I could feel their gaze on it. I envisioned Emily showing it to Dad, who was staring at the television in silent shock. In the meantime, I was busy constructing and living. Emily broke the silence first, not with a message, but with a full-fledged outburst. On social media, she captioned a blurry photo of her new room. "Miss my peace." Some people are just selfish. Subtle mutual friends and classmates left comments inquiring what occurred. She didn't tag me, and she didn't have to. I was the villain in her little story, and she made sure everyone knew it. A mutual friend sent me a screenshot of her private story, a crying selfie, a close-up of a boxed-up vanity mirror. Yes, the mirror, and a text overlay that said, "I gave up everything for this room. Now I might have to move back into the guest room. I hate it here. I didn't reply. I just watched it." And yeah, it's done a little. Not her drama, but the fact that for 3 years I paid to keep the illusion going. I funded that comfort, that mirror, and that sense of entitlement. Now it is gone. She didn't know yet, but I had just begun. It was a quiet Tuesday night when the phone lit up again. Not a text, this time, a call. Dad. I let it ring. Then, just as it went to voicemail, he called again and again. Finally, curiosity got the better of me. I didn't answer, but I listened to the message. Mark. Hey, just wanted to check in. Look, maybe I said things I shouldn't have. We miss you around here. Your sister's been upset. Your mom, too. Maybe we can talk things over. Yeah, come by this weekend. I stared at the screen. The audio is still echoing faintly in my head. Come by this weekend. Like nothing had happened. Like I could just walk back in and sit at the table, hand them a check and pretend none of it ever hurt. I deleted the voicemail. Then I grabbed a beer from my mini fridge, stepped out onto my tiny balcony and watched the city lights blink like distant stars. They weren't reaching out because they missed me. They were reaching out because they missed the money. After the voicemail, the floodgates opened. Text after text, email after email, not just from my parents, but extended family too. My Aunt Cheryl, who I hadn't spoken to since I was in braces, messaged me on Facebook with, "Hey, sweetheart, maybe you should come home and talk things out. It's just a misunderstanding, I'm sure." Right, Uncle Pete chimed in with a group message. "The family doesn't give up on each other. You're better than this. It was coordinated, scripted." Even like my father had gathered everyone and said, "Let's guilt him into fixing this." I didn't respond to any of them. Instead, I posted a photo. It was subtle. I captured a close-up of my apartment windowsill showcasing a small potted plant. I recently purchased sunlight streaming in P. I didn't use any hashtags or tags, but I was confident they'd notice, which they did. My aunt stopped following me 2 hours later. The point is, I wasn't interested in retribution in the traditional sense. There were no loud clashes or spectacular announcements. I desired a quiet revenge, the sort that caused them to simmer in their own silence, the kind that resulted from good living. So I began living better. I prepared meals in my own kitchen. I purchased a rail bed frame and joined up for a gym membership. On weekends, I walked around the city, tried new coffee shops, and did freelance work to supplement my savings. Every modest improvement felt like reclaiming a piece of myself that I had been throwing away for years, and I made sure they knew it. Not via gloating, but through consistency, I posted about getting my work badge laminated. When I completed a design proposal, I received internal recognition. I framed my first paycheck and displayed it above my desk. All of it is just real enough to hurt, just subtle enough to be obvious. Back at home, things were not going as well, Mark. An old neighborhood acquaintance texted me unexpectedly. "Hey, is everything okay? Your sister was complaining about having to share the restroom again." Loyal, I inquired what he meant. They had moved Emily back into the guest room. This is my guest room. Apparently, she didn't realize I'd stopped the money until after claiming my room. When the mortgage fell behind, the guilt trip devolved into finger pointing. Mark claimed that he overheard her screaming at her mother in the driveway one day. Something about ruining everything. And you said he would not abandon us. The irony felt almost poetic. They wanted to turn me into a ghost in that house, and now they were haunted by my absence. The cracks took about 6 weeks to become visible. At first, they tried to keep the illusion. Emily continued to post as if everything was perfect, sun-kissed selfies in her car, videos of her friends dancing in her room, despite the fact that she was back in the guest room with the yellowing curtains and a creaky bed frame. Mom tried texting casually as if we were just out of touch, unplanned. "I hope it works out well. I miss seeing. You want to come over for dinner next Sunday?" I didn't answer. She followed up with a photo of my old bookshelf, what used to be in my room half empty. Now, like some twisted metaphor, I guess they put a few of my books back to make it feel like his space again. In case I changed my mind, I didn't. Dad didn't text much, but I heard from Mark that he'd been asking around if anyone knew a cheaper way to refinance the mortgage. Apparently, the utility bills were stacking up. The central AC went out in early July. They were sweating through the same walls I once helped pay to insulate. The best part is they couldn't even ask for help. Not without admitting they'd burned the bridge and I wasn't just sitting still. I was moving forward. My internship turned into a job offer. Not full-time yet, but they wanted to keep me on through the fall. Part-time flexible hours with better pay. The manager said I had a rare combination of detail and grit. I smiled when she said that because grit was what this whole situation had given me. The old me would have gone back, would have answered the texts, softened the edges, and sent something a couple hundred just to keep the peace. But not anymore. That house. It wasn't my home. Their struggles are not my responsibility, and their disappointment is not my burden. I'd started to imagine what life looked like without the constant weight of obligation, what it felt like to choose peace instead of pressure. And let me tell you, peace is addictive. One night I came home from work still wearing my badge, my shirt a little wrinkled and shoes scuffed from the train station. I dropped my keys in the bowl by the door, cracked open a cold beer from the fridge, and stood by the window. City lights blinked quietly across the skyline. My phone buzzed on the counter. Dad again. Another call? I let it ring, didn't even pick it up this time. I just stood there watching it vibrate, watching the name fade from the screen. And when it stopped, I took a slow sip of that beer, leaned back in my chair, and smiled. The next morning, my phone buzzed again. One message. No greeting, no punctuation. We need to talk, Dad. I stared at it, let it sit there, watched the screen dim on its own, and I felt nothing. Not anger, not guilt, just quiet. I set the phone face down on the table, grabbed my keys, and headed out. No more wondering if I was needed, wanted, or useful. I wasn't anyone's crutch anymore. Later that night, I came home, kicked off my shoes, and cracked another beer. This one is colder than the last. The apartment was dim and peaceful, mine. The phone lit up again on the counter. I didn't even look, just leaned back, took a long sip, and let the silence stretch. Finally, it was mine too. Thanks for watching and diving into this wild family drama
Thank
with
you for
me.
watching. If you haven't subscribed yet,
Please do so and hit the notification bell to stay updated with more shocking real-life stories happening around you.